Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome. What's going on here? I have a correction, I guess you could say.
Yes.
And I think our audio level needs to go up a little bit.
You'd be the expert on that.
Yeah. Let's do that. Okay. Maybe we can come down in the headphones a little bit. All right. So yesterday we were talking about clone troopers, stormtroopers, and all of that. And apparently I made a mistake.
Yes, indeed.
So I'm going to read into this. Ian wrote in and he said, I'm mistaken about that all stormtroopers are clones. So, nerdy talk follows, he wrote. Clone troopers commissioned for the Republic were genetically modified clones designed to rapidly age to battle-ready status in 5 years. The side effects of this was that clone troopers aged unnaturally fast, and most were out of service by the time of A New Hope, that being Episode 4. Clones were expensive, and with the rapid expansion of the military following the formation of the Galactic Empire, it was impractical and costly to continue relying solely on clones for their expanded military force. Instead, they opened military academies and started enlisting on some worlds, conscripting soldiers. By the time of A New Hope, most stormtroopers were regular humans, and 30 years later, there are likely no clones left alive, unless the Empire still buys a small amount to use as an elite fighting force.
Indeed. So my understanding, by mere coincidence that I read something about it, that it didn't make sense for there to be a black stormtrooper, that was actually an unfair criticism, right? Because they're not clones.
I guess so. Yeah.
All right.
This could be a stormtrooper who goes rogue.
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't looked into the story too much. Anyway, let's talk about Li-Fi. What is Li-Fi? It's a method of delivering data wirelessly that uses the visible spectrum, visible light spectrum. And it can deliver internet access 100 times faster, Dave, than whatever we have going on right here.
Sure.
So this was, it was tested this week by an Estonian startup called Velmeni in the capital of Tallinn. Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe so.
Okay. They used a Li-Fi enabled light bulb to transmit data at speeds of 1 gigabyte per second, but that laboratory tests have shown theoretical speeds of up to 224 gigabytes per second.
Now, what I want to remind people of, because when you hear this, it's so hugely exciting. If we were to take our internet connection here, right, and replace our gigabit or whatever router with one that is 10 times faster, our internet speed would not change at all because it's still limited by our internet service provider. So these technologies, it's fascinating and it's terrific that this is going on. But we have to remember that you also need an internet service provider that can actually give you those speeds in order for your local transmission method to increase your speed. Now, if there were an internet service provider that worked directly via Li-Fi in some way, if that were possible, then you would sort of be skipping that step. But I think sometimes there's confusion when people hear about these technologies.
Yeah, but I mean, also in theory, you could have like a closed work network where you have your traditional internet speed coming in from your service provider, right, and then let's say you use this as a method of transferring data.
Of course.
Okay, so it's a little bit different, but it could still be useful, but you're right.
It could, but even then, at this point, you'd be limited by the speed of your hard drives.
Yes. So anyway, it's still pretty cool.
Very, very cool.
And what we're talking about here is actually using a light bulb, right? I mean, you can see the light, and it's transferring the data.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the term Li-Fi, coined by Professor Harold Haas from Edinburgh University. This technology, I guess, was demonstrated by him in a 2011 TED conference. So this is pretty good stuff.
It is interesting, and you mentioned Estonia. Estonia is doing some very interesting things. I'm increasingly interested in visiting Estonia. It seems to be one of the parts of Europe that is sort of straddling the border between being Western Europe and being Eastern Europe. Technologically, it's a very advanced country. It's a small country. It's still a much from what I understand, a much less expensive vacation than a lot of the more usual suspects people like to go to in Europe. And it just seems super interesting to go to. And don't they also have this? Didn't we talk about the e-citizenship thing in Estonia?
It's e-citizenship, but also electronic voting.
Right.
That you can do from, I guess, any computer.
Very interesting country.
Yeah, I think that's. I would also love to go there. So I guess when it comes to radio waves, the spectrum is pretty small compared to the spectrum of visible light, and so there's you just have more room,
Sure.
really, 10,000 times larger. So
The whole thing.
great stuff. We are going to keep our eyes on Li-Fi, and we may never even use it in our lifetimes, but
Well, I don't know about that. I think we will.
maybe. The technology is there. Okay, a quick story here on Blackberry in Pakistan. Blackberry, I don't know who uses Blackberries anymore. Blackberry's still a thing somehow.
Yeah.
But they are going to exit Pakistan. And exit is in quotes. But the Pakistani government has basically demanded that BlackBerry allow them to monitor all the information coming through their servers.
Right.
All the data, all the phone calls, all the texts.
Full backdoor. Open. Wide open backdoor.
Wide open. So they decided to exit the market altogether. Did Pakistan just kind of tell them they have to leave because they denied them this? Whatever the case, BlackBerry's leaving Pakistan. And a quote here from Marty Beard, the chief operating officer at BlackBerry,
Yep.
said that the truth of the matter was that they wanted to look at all traffic passing across its messaging servers, that they would not comply. What, Dave?
You just want to talk right into that mic, I think.
Right into the mic.
Yep.
I'm looking at my level. It's picking me up just fine.
Good.
Okay. So anyway, you threw me off. You threw me off here. Remaining in Pakistan would have meant forfeiting our commitment to protect our users' privacy. That is a compromise we are not willing to make. I wonder what they're handing over to the NSA.
Well, I was going to say, fantastic. They're taking a moral stand. They would rather lose the business of Pakistan than hand over data. And now what are they doing in the U.S.? That was the obvious question I thought of.
Yeah. They also said that Pakistan is an important market. And it's nice to know that this type of data collection is happening in other places. It's great. Pakistan certainly needs it. Pakistan probably needs it more than we do.
Maybe so.
But we know that they have some corrupt officials anyway. Who knows what's going on in that government? All right, Dave, you want to tell a story?
I will tell a story of sometime. It's been a while since I ran into someone who just presented completely shamelessly, stereotypes. In this case, about Jews, and it really came close to getting pretty ugly over the Thanksgiving weekend. I haven't told the story to
Like
Lewis yet.
fisticuffs?
Not fisticuffs,
okay.
but it was going to get very awkward. But I thought better of it and said, this person doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. I'll let them just go away. I was speaking to someone. It doesn't even matter who. It's someone I've only met a few times, right? And as a complete non sequitur, there was a conversation about vehicles. That's the only connection. People were talking about vehicles. It was me and this person and a couple other people. And this person says, yeah, in some city in New York, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's a city in New York that has a significant Hasidic Jewish population. He goes, it's mostly Hasidic Jews there, and I'll be driving on the highway, and these Hasidic Jews, they're never driving the same speed as me. They either drive way past me going 90 miles an hour, or they're going super slow and getting in my way. And their cars always have like a bumper hanging off, or the car's in terrible condition. So far, basically they're saying, okay, Hasidic Jews are poor, right? I mean, if you're saying their cars are always in disrepair, I guess you're either saying they don't care about their cars, or it's a poor population that can't afford nice vehicles. And that's true. The Hasidic Jewish population is typically a poor population. No question about it. All right. So that's the conversation so far. And I say, okay, don't you think maybe you're sort of generalizing about a group, but just based on a few people that you've seen? And the person goes, no. I've researched this. Now, at this point, a normal person, if you say something that is generalizing about a group of people and someone says to you, don't you think you're unfairly generalizing? A light bulb goes off and you go, maybe I'm being offensive. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this. No light bulb went off. Okay. Person continues and goes, no, I've researched it. See, the thing is, Hasidic Jews can't negotiate anything financial. Okay. So they all lease vehicles. And when they lease vehicles, they have to negotiate either through their rabbi or through a leasing company. And leasing companies, so most people, when you lease a car, you go to a dealership and you negotiate it with the dealership. There are leasing companies that exist. And I've gotten quotes from them when I've been leasing vehicles. They basically deal with dealerships. And I think the idea is the dealership accepts a smaller profit because the lease company can get them a bunch of deals, right? So it's sort of like quantity over quality. And so right away, this theory is bullshit, okay? Pardon my language, because they're simultaneously saying they all have vehicles in disrepair with bumpers hanging off, and they're all leasing brand new vehicles. Now, when you lease a vehicle, you can't have bumpers hanging off. I mean, the vehicle has to be in good shape because part of what you're agreeing to do with the lease is return it in good condition or pay for those repairs.
Right.
So the idea that the poor Hasidic Jews with the broken cars can simultaneously afford to regularly be leasing new vehicles, it's ridiculous. Okay, totally ridiculous. And I said, oh, okay. Well, how do you know that they're leasing the vehicles? And he says, well, because their license plate frames all have the name of a leasing company in Brooklyn, which of course in my mind is right. The Jews, New York City, leasing, finances, new vehicles. It's all like, clearly there's more to this story. This person clearly has a lot more to say. Now, at this point, I was just so taken aback by this hypothesis about Jews with new cars that are negotiated independently, that are in disrepair, and they can't drive well. They're either speeding or they're going really slow, that I started saying less and less. And then the person goes, yeah, and the reason they drive so poorly is they believe God will protect them. So, hey, I'll go 90 or I'll be on my phone not paying attention because it's not in my hands, it's in God's hands. Okay, so this is the total hypothesis that this person had. Towards the end, I think they realized that I was starting to find their commentary offensive because they very quietly, after me just being totally silent, said, but maybe this is just a small slice of them. Maybe it's not representative of everybody. And then the person disappeared from in front of me and didn't say another word to me the entire night other than a very awkward goodbye. I don't know if they realized that they were doing something completely insane. And I told former TV director and my brother Natan about this, and he's now working for the Anti-Defamation League, and he does a lot of trainings on how to deal with anti-Semitism and xenophobia and anti-Hispanic, just all that stuff. And he said sometimes a really good thing to say is, that's interesting. What do you think this means about Jews or whatever group? And his explanation was, if someone is willing to tell this story, right, this is not the only thing they've thought of with regard to whatever group. If they tell a story about Jews and cars and leasing or whatever, they clearly have some ideas about Jews more generally that are probably the really offensive ideas. And my brother said a great thing to say if you don't want to be confrontational, but you want to sort of suss out what it is this person thinks, which is probably really offensive, is you say, that's really interesting. And how does this tie in? Like, what does this mean about Jews? What does this say about Jews, right? What can we deduce about Jews based on this story? And most people at that point will either realize they're about to say something horribly offensive, or they'll just tell you what the really offensive thing they think is. I didn't do that, but maybe I should have. Maybe next time.
Do I know this person?
I don't think you've ever met them, no.
Okay. Well, that's pretty interesting. I don't have any experience with driving and Hasidic Jews in New York.
The stereotype in New York City is that Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn often drive minivans because they have large families, and that's true. They're one of the groups. Hasidic Jews are one of the groups that have the highest number of offspring, of children, and you do need a vehicle for that. And oftentimes the sort of idea, the stereotype is you see a lot of Hasidic Jews driving around in minivans. I've never seen anything about, they're leased minivans, or they're minivans with a bumper hanging off, or they're minivans being driven very fast or very slow. And the funniest thing about that is they're either driving faster or slower than me. Yeah, the odds that cars are driving the exact same speed you're driving are pretty low. Most vehicles on the road are going to be driving either faster or slower. I don't know that that's just Hasidic vehicles.
Yeah, that's good point.
That's like when people say, oh, Jews just love money. Right, because Asians and black people and WASPs and Christians, they hate money. They don't want anything to do with money, Lewis.
Yeah, right. Like the fried chicken thing, right? It's like
Right.
Everybody loves fried chicken.
Of course.
Anyway, I think there's one thing I can agree with from that whole exchange, and that is that I can totally envision some pious Jewish schmuck speeding down the highway because they think that God will protect them.
And that applies to every religion. As we talked, the woman recently who was in a car crash because
her
she was
hands off.
praying while driving because she was convinced Jesus was going to take care of her.
Yeah.
She just needed to pray to Jesus while driving.
Yeah. That's something that we can find across all religions.
Sure.
I think. But it's disturbing, nevertheless. So that's it for today, right? Anything to add?
I have nothing else.
Okay.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.